If there's anybody in the virtual audience who would like to be recognized, please raise your hands to be recognized. Who was the first one again? Okay, thank you. At this point, we've got 2 requests for continuances. Docket number 2021-12 DP D Altum 79-5 Southwest 421. Petition for development plan approval to allow for a storage structure in addition to structures related to the commercial garden center in the rural I-2 light industrial zoning district. I believe Wayne was the town going to handle this one.
Correct. Staff is requesting the continuance on behalf of the petitioner. This would be for a 30-day continuance or to your May 17th plan commission. And that would be without notice. And this is simply to allow the petitioner additional time to review the matter and most likely prepare for a variance filing to accompany the petition.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions, comments on this one? If not, is there a move to continue this matter to the May 17th, 2021 meeting with no additional required notice?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. All right, that matter is continued. Also on the docket is 2021-10 DP S Jenkins Tipsy Mermaid 135 South Main Street petition for development plan approval to permit a building renovation and building additions to a 0.17 acre parcel located in the Village Business District BBD. Is the petitioner present, or were you going to handle that way?
Petitioner should be online. Is that correct, Joe?
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Roush is here in
All right.
person. Very good.
Good evening, David Roush, 170 South Main Street, Zionsville. On behalf of Sherry Jenkins, our client and the petitioner, we would ask for a 30-day continuance. We've had a few just engineering and internal engineering coordination things that we would like to resolve before we bring it forward to the committee. So,
All right, thank you. Would anybody like to comment on this matter? Any questions, comments from any of the plan commission members? Bob, should we don't need to require additional notice on this one? Okay. All right, so would anybody like to make a motion to continue this matter to the May 17th plan commission meeting with no additional notice?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Motion carries. Continuance granted. On to continued business. Docket number 2021-06 PP Fisher Homes, Chelsea Park, Templin Road, Zionsville, Indiana. Continued plan petition for primary plan approval to provide for 33 lots with the following waivers in a rural R3 medium density single family and 2-family residential zoning district. 1, section 193-052 required turn radius from 300 feet to 200 feet. 2, section 193.052.14 cul-de-sac length over 800 feet. 3, section 193.052.14 an alley closer than 50 feet to the street right of way. 4, section 193.053.18D driveways closer than 75 feet to the intersection. Petitioner present.
Good evening, Mr. President. For the record, my name is Matt Price. I'm an attorney with Denton's, appearing tonight on behalf of Fisher Homes. As you mentioned, this is a primary plat continued at the March 15th meeting so that we could address some design elements and improve the proposal. I have with me from Fisher Homes today, Jason Wisniewski in the front row and our civil engineer, Josh Kribalov. And both of these gentlemen are available to answer questions as well. We did make several refinements to the proposal since the presentation back on March 15th, specifically along the east-west roadway, which we call Campton Walk. We reduced the number of lots along that walk from 13 to 11, which allowed us to pull the cul-de-sac further west. So the one waiver request regarding the proximity of the cul-de-sac to the right-of-way is being withdrawn this evening because we no longer require that waiver. In addition to the shifting of the cul-de-sac further west, we added vehicle parking along the west, along the north side of Campton Walk, and provide a walkway between lots 26 and 27, which connects to the sidewalk running on the south side of our development along Templin Road. We were also able to address the proximity of driveways to the intersection of Pembridge and Camden Walk, eliminating the need for the waiver request with regard to lots 1 and 20. It still continues to exist with lot 21. And so we're going to require the waiver request with regard to that one lot. We still have a driveway within 66 feet of that intersection, but otherwise, due to shifting the location of the drives, we're able to meet that standard on those other two lots. One other thing I should add in the engineering comments, we do have support for the cul-de-sac length waiver with the improvements that we've made to Camden Walk. The fire department is supportive of measuring the length of that cul-de-sac from the intersection of Pembridge and Camden Walk, as opposed to measuring it from Templin Road and Pembridge, and therefore supporting that cul-de-sac length along Pembridge. So with that, with those refinements to the various design elements, we would respectfully request your approval of the primary plat, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have this evening.
All right, thank you. At this point in time, is there any members of the audience who'd like to comment on this? There are none. Wayne, we have a staff report, please.
Certainly, staff is supportive of the petition, certainly as it's been amended. Certainly this, as you recall from last month's conversation and discussion in this room, staff was not supportive of 2 of the 4 waivers, but we have come to the conclusion that we are supportive of the 3 waivers that are necessary, and the 1 can move forward without the project relying on that waiver. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been amended. Certainly, again, noting the matter that's in front of you is specifically to a plat. Future development plan filing will follow up at some point in time in the future. And that's where a lot of the conversation related to drainage, landscaping, other components that may be mentioned in the filing, and certainly sanitary sewer will be reviewed with much greater scrutiny as additional ordinances will be reviewed at that time. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been amended, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, I'll open up to members of the commission for any questions, comments.
I mean, my opposition to it hasn't changed. It's not particularly suitable type of development for that location. While we appreciate some parking in the back and a sidewalk, it's still going to create a traffic and a safety hazard. Because when it comes to deliveries and everything servicing these houses, it's all going to show up on Templin Road, and the grading and everything else along the front of these, it's just not good. I don't know how to describe it any better.
I was going to ask the same thing. Talk to me about how the walkway is going to make that big a difference.
Well,
What we were concerned about.
Well, what it provides, as I understood, the concern was that we provided adequate parking for deliveries. And so we've centralized the location of that parking and made it so that the foot access to that parking is directly connected to where that parking location is, so that they can walk directly from where they park to the front of the homes and make any required delivery.
Well, I saw it right, but I wanted you to tell me again so I can make sure that I saw what you had done
Yeah.
correctly. Thank you.
Are those parking spots sized for delivery vehicles?
They're 22 feet in length, so yes, so it would accommodate for example, an Amazon type delivery vehicle.
UPS truck?
The typical one that you see like driving through the village, yes.
They can parallel park in a 22-foot spot.
They do in the village in much more compact areas, yes.
Okay, I think a UPS truck is more than 22 foot in and of itself.
Yeah, and if they didn't fit squarely within one single spot, the spots are aligned, along each other so that, at any limited point in time when there's a delivery being made, there should be adequate space. There's only 11 homes there. We did eliminate, 2 of the 13 homes, creating less congestion as well.
So I don't have the previous version of this plan, or wasn't able to take the time to pull it out. So in the front, along Templin Road, has what has been shown as the right of way that's there changed? I mean, is there now an intent? No, I guess it is the same. Because at one point there was a discussion about maybe putting a pull off or something on Templin Road for delivery type vehicles, but it doesn't sound like that's been explored any further.
We've not made that kind of a revision to the Templin Road approach. No. Felt like we could accommodate that, given the limited number of homes, and that we could accommodate that on the north side of that street comfortably.
And is there any, or is the intent on this Hampton Walk, is that all going to be posted with no parking except for in these designated parking spots? I guess it seemed like reading through it previously, part of the intent of that road is to allow fire department access to these buildings. If you let people start parking on that street, other than in the designated parking areas, it's going to limit the ability of fire equipment to access the area. So,
And especially the cul-de-sac if we're allowing it to be smaller in diameter.
but I guess it is the intent that would be posted as no parking, and that the HOA would police that situation.
We could certainly provide signage that indicates no parking, and the cul-de-sac is not smaller than as prescribed by the town of Zionsville.
I thought that was one of your waivers.
No, the waiver is regarding turning radius. It just means that the curve on Pembroke Drive, it's being, the radius is a little smaller than
Okay,
the minimum standard to provide some traffic calming there.
gotcha. Thanks for clarifying.
I guess my question though is, even if it is posted no parking, if nobody ever enforces the no parking, then people will park there anyway.
Yeah, I think my reading of the fire department opined on this specifically with regard to the engineering comments with the changes we made to Camden Walk, and they were comfortable with the improvements that we made. We bumped out the width of Camden to provide for that parking so that it actually brings it off the traveling part of that street.
What's the total number of parking spots?
12.
12. So 12 parking spots for 11 units essentially.
Right.
But then each unit is going to have a garage associated with it also.
That's correct.
Is that
Yes.
a two-car garage or?
2-car garage. Yep.
What are those 11 houses? Are they 2 stories? What's the concept for those houses?
You want to speak to that a little bit?
My name is Jason Wisniewski, 3940 Olympic Boulevard, Erlanger, Kentucky, 41018. They are two-story, and they are part of our Fisher's new offering of what we're calling our urban collection. So they're intended to be well-appointed homes, high-quality finishes, but in sites that are constrained because they are in desirable locations that are kind of that have site constraints that really afford higher price points, but also allow where you need to be flexible or have a product that can be flexible. And that's so they're all two-story. Part of the issue, one of the things I wanted to bring up on Templin Road is they will all have landscaping in the front, fencing and landscaping in front of that to make that streetscape feel a certain way, which will also be a deterrent for deliveries. It's not like you're going to just park on the side of Templin Road and then be able to just run right through. There's going to be fencing and landscaping there to help prevent that as well. But
The fence run, I'm assuming there's gonna be a drainage ditch. Then landscaping fence, I mean, how's that gonna be positioned relative to the sidewalk?
it's going to be on private property behind the right of way, behind the sidewalk. Right now, I think what our latest intention was on the landscape plan, I have to see here, is I believe it is. I can't remember if it goes sidewalk, fencing, landscape, or I actually think it goes sidewalk, landscape, fencing behind it, so that you would have that softer feel along the sidewalk.
Will the fences have gates to each house? entrance?
Yes, they would have a gate so that, again, if anybody happens to be walking along Templin Road, they can open that gate and get in. But again, it's not going to, the streetscape as it's going to feel from Templin Road is not going to feel very inviting to someone just pulling over, and you're not running just through a lawn area, I guess is my point.
I mean, once again, as I look at your site plan and your grading plan, down there in front of lots 21, 22, 23, there's a 5-foot ditch off the edge of Templin Road to get down to storm structure number 102. I don't think you actually own the land between Templin Road and the structure. The Templin Road, it seems like if I'm looking at what I think is the property line, it kind of varies back, correct? Is that what I'm looking at, the black line?
Which lots again, Mr. Jones?
It's that dark black line that kind of gets closer to lots 25, 26, 27, 28, and then fades out. Is that the
existing property line.
is that the property line?
It's the existing property line.
Okay,
So the southern line is the existing property line. The darker black line just north of that is the proposed right-of-way line.
the right of way. Okay, so Templin Road has no curbs, has no walk out there along the edge. It is just pavement to gravel to dirt. The land that you're proposing to do a lot of this on, you don't really control. You've got a 5-foot ditch in front of it. Delivery vehicles, moving vehicles, even the construction of these things is not going to happen on that little alley out behind it. Just isn't. And telling us anything different is, you can tell us whatever. Nobody's going to manage it. Nobody's going to provide any kind of security. No delivery person's ever going to pay attention to any kind of sign. The delivery trucks will pull over, pull off the edge. They'll eventually start tearing up the edge of the roadway, and somebody's going to end up down in that ditch. And it's a 5-foot deep ditch, if I'm doing my math correct, which the structure sits at 865, and I think the property up there is 869 plus. So that's pretty close to 5 feet. The house is set up a little higher. Correct. The TOP is basically the floor elevation. Am I reading your information correctly? Yeah.
I respectfully disagree. I think it's exactly why
There's nothing to degree about, Matt. I'm reading the drawings. I am reading your engineered drawings.
But you're speculating tremendously.
I'm not
that
speculating.
all
It
of the
says
access
storm
to the site
structure
is gonna
sits at
come from Templin Road, and
865
That's just
feet.
not the case.
Water flows downhill and it needs a ditch.
Exactly, and that will discourage the use of that area for deliveries. That's why we did exactly what we were asked to do during the last meeting.
Well, we didn't like it at the last meeting either. And the concerns we had at the last meeting have not changed to this meeting, and you haven't addressed them.
I think the petition has made a more than good faith effort to add the parking and provide the walkway connection while also preserving the development in such a way that it's a combination of these land uses. This property is zoned R3. If the response we're getting is that we should come in with a more of the product along Templin Road spread throughout the project, I mean, that's the alternative to us to obtain a plat approval. I think we've reached a good balance here. And that's exactly what we've tried to achieve by providing the parking that's adequate for deliveries behind these homes.
Adequate and being used are two different things.
But you described for yourself that the 5-foot difference in elevation is going to discourage the use of the front of that property for that purpose. And that together with the landscaping is going to discourage that.
I don't know that it's going to discourage it. I think it's going to make it more challenging. The unfortunate world we live in is that these residents are going to get UPS 2 times a day, FedEx 2 times a day, and Amazon about 40 times a day. And those,
It's 11 homes.
yeah, that are all going to likely get a delivery every other day. I mean, that's just the world we live in. And those drivers, you can post a 20-mile-an-hour speed sign every 15 foot, and they're going to drive through the neighborhood at 40. So they don't obey signs. We know that. And so I think the concern is that while you've done what you're kind of supposed to do, we know that the situations that you're going to encounter are not going to be met by people that observe the signs and do what they're supposed to do. And so it's ultimately going to create an issue for the residents. It's going to potentially create a safety issue along the road. And at some point in time, it could create a fire issue. And yes, it's hard to design around that. And I don't know that we'll ever get to a place where you can foolproof what delivery drivers are going to do. But there will still be challenges, quite a few challenges, I feel like, even in this scenario. So I understand where Mr. Jones is coming from.
And while this is a primary plat, I look at these lots that are being requested, and I mean, even if we get to the development plan and we try to figure out if you can reverse these houses and have where the houses are facing Templin Road now and face Camden Walk, that creates an issue because Camden Walk is technically an alley. There's no way you can put in the garages for parking effectively under that manner. And I realize they're two different things. It's plat versus development plan. I too share their concern relative to delivery trucks. I mean, I live in a cul-de-sac that's got like 7 homes, and I think there's trucks going twice a day through there, if not more. I don't know what can be done to really discourage parking along Templin Road. I mean, obviously, you don't want to put up signs, no parking, and it kind of destroys the front of the development's appearance. I struggle with how to deal with that.
What are the back of these buildings gonna look like? Is it just the garage door? Is there a rear, like, man door entrance into these houses? Or are you just gonna see the only way in the back is the garage door?
As they're proposed, so these are proposed as detached garages. So it'll be like a typical urban detached garage where you'll have the garage door, and then some treatment on either side, but it's not going to be a door facing that garage. There would be, I believe they would have a man door from the rear yard of the home, from the rear yard space between the home and the structure, where you could access, obviously, the garage from internal to the site, but they won't have a door. They won't have anything other than the garage door on the Camden Walk side of it.
Okay. I guess what I'm struggling with at this point is that, I mean, we've speculated a lot on what's gonna happen here, I guess, as far as how this is gonna play out with the parking and the deliveries and all of this. But the problem is that if we're right as to what kind of problems there are gonna be, then I don't know what the remedy is gonna be to resolve that. And it seems like it's gonna be a perpetual issue for the town to have to deal with this, you know, complaints or towing or, you know, safety issues on the road. And that's gonna be after the developer has built this and kind of moved on. So that's what I struggle with, is it's hard to say exactly how it's gonna be, but if it does end up being the situation that we've talked about, then we've kind of just given ourselves a perpetual problem that isn't gonna, there's not a good way to resolve it later, I guess is what I'm struggling with.
May I ask just for clarification, is the issue that there's simply not an acceptable development pattern on Camden Walk with 11 homes? I mean, is the issue the number of homes, or any use of that property like this is going to present too many delivery trucks? Because I'm at a loss of how you do address that and have the beneficial use of that property, which is otherwise meeting the development standards for under the ordinance.
Well, I mean, I agree. It's meeting the development. I don't think there's an issue with it saying it's meeting the requirements. And I agree with that. I think, you know, the issue is it's trying to put that many houses in that narrow of a piece of property. If these things were, in my opinion, if they were facing the other way, if you could get a road and somehow get traffic or your cars parked, that would make more sense to me, because you're not going to be utilizing Templin Road as a primary access point to these houses for deliveries. And I don't know, you know, if there was a way that you could somehow put Camden Walk as their permanent address and people would have to go that way, maybe that would help. But that's not their address. Their address is Templin Road. So when an Uber driver or anybody puts in the address, they're going to put in whatever it is, Templin Road, and it's going to take them right on that street, right to their front doorstep.
They're not gonna realize there's an alley behind it. They're gonna pull up and be like, oh, okay, there's a ditch, but I gotta get to that door. So I jump the ditch and go up.
Sure.
On that point specifically, I mean, every UPS, FedEx, Amazon, they all have special delivery instructions. Every single one of them that can help address that. It's not, is it going to fully address that? I mean, fingers crossed it would, but I'm not going to pretend like it would. Sir, to your point about, I completely understand the concern. I just don't think from a design perspective, turning those homes and right now when you drive down Templin Road, you know, assuming that this gets built, right, you're going to see the fronts of those homes. You're going to see, you know, there's going to be some two-story architecture, some height. There's going to be a streetscape there, as opposed to the backside of that, which is, you know, garages with, you know, landscaping, and I think it just sets up better. It feels a little bit more. There's a better feel to the front of the house than there is to the back of the house. And again, I think what I'll say this: a month ago when I stood here and heard these concerns, and we have, I think we've proven, if anything, we are attempting to, we're listening and we're trying to address those concerns. And I think we would do anything within reason to further address those concerns as we move this forward. What I'm struggling with is I don't know how to address a concern that is a lot of what we talked about here is speculative, and I'm not sure, there are what if situations for so many things here, and I'm not sure I know how to I can't solve every one of those. I'll just be honest. I cannot solve every single problem.
I agree, we're making some presumptions. I don't disagree, but I think most reasonable people would make the same presumption. How that plays out is to be determined if this is
Is there a
built.
way to get the address to Camden?
Yeah.
So that would be.
We were discussing if we were able to come back to you with assurances from the town that we could get the addresses changed to Camden Walk. We'd be willing to go back and try to see if we could get that accomplished.
I can tell you that 911 looks for the address assignments based upon the location of the front door. Building code only mandates one entry point into a home, and that door is 36 inches wide. You can have other doors on your house, but the door that is associated with the number is the most supportive place of entry for life safety. And so numerically, that is painted based upon the location of your front door.
Which is a whole other challenge, because then the ambulance is gonna pull up front and be like, okay, how do I get to that door? Okay, I'm gonna go around back. Now, how do I get to the front? Okay, now I got to the front. How many houses down was that again? So, I mean, you made a comment about the urban architecture, and I guess what makes you feel like this thematically fits in with anything along Templin Road? And you got 5-acre, $10 million homes to the south, and you just don't have a lot of density. So you've got what is a fairly non-dense area along that road, and then just bam, 11 homes in, 200 foot, 250 foot.
Yeah, I would say in the immediate vicinity, there isn't something that the proposed product is necessarily consistent with. I know as you go back, as you go west, getting closer into true downtown Zionsville, this technique has been employed. There's some rear loaded product that goes in there. I know just east, what would be kind of like on the southeast corner, just across Michigan Avenue, there's some denser housing in there that, again, is not necessarily exactly of this architectural style, but is similar. So I don't, again, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, what's exactly across the street fits this, is completely compatible with this. I'm not going to pretend, but I think what we're attempting to do here is, and Matt had used a phrase before, I can't remember, benefits the land. Like this is a piece of land. This is the piece of land that we control, and how do you work within the zoning restrictions of that land? How do we accommodate that? And how do we create, I'm not saying the perfect solution, how do we create a good solution with the tools in our arsenal, with the product that we have available? We believe, the elevations, the character, the quality that we Fisher believe we are as a builder, with the amount of landscape. I think, we've submitted those landscape plans. I know that's a development plan requirement, but it is heavily landscaped. There's a theme to it. We believe we're working with the cards that were dealt, and we believe we played the hand as best we can with the products we have available.
So let me ask a question, Wayne. They've met the requirements relative to zoning on the plats here, correct?
Correct, and that's the challenge is, much like the petition being illustrative of landscaping and other components that are beyond the subdivision control ordinance, so is this discussion.
Right.
The subdivision control ordinance does not embrace the concern of how a particular fill in the blank entity operates with their delivery vehicles. However, this will be a conversation at the development plan. And so it's very helpful right now to have this conversation. But no, I think, and certainly if there's any more specificity, certainly Mr. Clutter can provided, but yeah, the test tonight is the filing in compliance with the subdivision control ordinance.
Do you know if there's anything in our rules or standards that prohibit any sort of street parking or street pull-off along Templin Road in front of these buildings? I mean, before when we discussed it last month, that was one thing that was mentioned as a possible additional solution. That it doesn't, I don't know if that was discussed and kind of.
I don't remember that, sir.
Okay.
And that, so oh, sorry. I don't remember that being an option. That's why you're not seeing it on a plan, not because we ignored it or I don't recall that part of the conversation.
Okay.
Stop. Something we would consider, for sure.
The town council.
I don't know what everybody else's opinion is, but that was, I know that was one thing that I thought that was mentioned that I don't know.
Do we have any issues of proximity to the intersection to do something like that?
I don't know.
Well, certainly the state highway department, the county highway department, and the town itself would look to weigh in on, limited access easement across the frontage and or maybe the eventual construction of a guardrail or other type of physical barrier. And then signage on top of that, beyond any sort of additional physical hurdles.
Could be the adoption of a no parking ordinance along that portion of Temple Road.
Get enforcement.
Well, back when Whitestown only had one cop and the speed limit was 20, nobody went over 20. It doesn't take a lot of enforcement to make.
Yeah,
people-
once you've got an ordinance, then you've got the ability to.
Yeah.
Obviously, right, police department have them write tickets.
How would, to go, I mean, would the developer petition like, Boone County, I mean, how would they go about getting that to be a no parking zone?
Yes, and then the highway department would do a engineering study. And certainly if it's warranted based upon the projected use, they pass no parking ordinances before in certain areas.
Assuming traffic density impacts that quite a bit.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And contemplated uses, so obviously if this works its way through the coming use, I'm sure the commissioners would look with great deference towards whatever those recommendations of the plan commission were.
If this was approved as is tonight, would it be worthwhile for them to begin that process of trying to get this to be no parking in advance of the development plan, or at least start that process?
We can start that process. I can work with Mr. Price on that.
All right, do we have any further discussion?
Once again, we're putting the burden on the town.
I understand, but they meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. That's the issue we've got.
Well, but they don't, they need the,
I know they need the waivers.
they need the following waivers, so they don't.
It's a separate vote. I mean, obviously.
Well, then I'll make motions.
All right, so there's a series of motions.
Correct, I'll make all of them.
All right,
I move that the waiver allowing for the reduction of the required turning radius from 300 feet to 200 feet be denied.
is there a second? Call for a second again. No second, so the motion dies for lack of a second.
I move that the waiver allowing for the road length of the cul-de-sac over 800 feet be denied.
This specifically is related to the 800 feet, which is the alleyway. Is that correct?
No.
No?
It's
Oh,
the
that's the next.
Pembridge Lane.
Okay, all right. All right, so this is the Was it Templin Lane, you said?
Pembridge.
Pembridge Lane,
Yes.
okay. Is there a second on this one? Once again, I'll call for a second. There's no second, so that motion dies.
Okay, I move the waiver allowing for driveway installation within 75 feet of an intersection associated with lot 21 be denied.
Is there a second? Once again, I'll call for a second. That motion dies for lack of a second.
And then we have a final one. I move that docket 2021-06 PP petition for primary plat approval to provide for 31 lots with waivers in the rural R3 medium density, single family and two family residential zoning district be denied as presented.
Is there a second? Call for a second again. There is no second, so that motion dies. All right, that series of motions died. Was there any further discussion? Would anybody like to make another motion?
I move that the waiver allowing for the reduction of the required turning radius from 300 feet to 200 feet be approved based on the findings in the staff report exhibit 7 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly, Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grebanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Nay.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
That motion carries 6-1, so that waiver is granted. Is there a motion on the next waiver?
I move that the waiver allowing for the road length of a cul-de-sac over 800 foot be approved based on the findings in the staff report exhibit 7 as presented.
There's a second on this motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mrs. Grebanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Nay.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Franz.
Aye, that motion carries 6-1. That waiver is granted. Is there a motion on the last waiver?
I move that waiver allowing for a driveway installation within 75 feet of an intersection associated with lot 21 be approved based on findings in staff report as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Mr. Jones,
Nay.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grebanowski.
Aye.
That motion also carries 6-1, so that waiver is granted. On the final motion for the primary plat approval, is there a motion for that?
I move that docket 2021-06-PP petition for primary plat approval to provide 31 lots with waivers in the rural R3 medium density, single family and two family residential zoning district be approved based on the findings of fact.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, comment?
Just one final comment. Just because you can fit 31 lots on a piece of property doesn't mean it's mandated. It's not a requirement that we approve it. You know, property is only worth what it's worth, and it's only worth what it's worth based on what you can get out of it. And if they can't fit 31 lots on there in a reasonable way, then come back with some other thing and recycle the whole project all the way down to what they pay for the land. And all this is the ability to pack 11 houses on that strip of land. It's going to cause traffic problems. It's going to cause problems for the town managing it. It's going to be visually problematic because the edge of the road is going to get run over. There's a 5-foot ditch down the front of this property, primarily because they only put in one inlet to serve the storm sewer requirements of those 11 homes. And finally, we're going to end up with basically the parking lot at the corner of Templin and Michigan Road, which anybody else in any other development, well, I can't say that. There's plenty of parking lots in front of buildings all up and down Michigan. While it is a urban designed project on residentially zoned land, generally the area is its entirety is not urban in nature. It is more rural in nature, hence the size of the lots, hence everything else around it. And anytime there is any kind of density this dense, it is back in areas where we don't really see it. Get on the satellite map and yes, you can find housing this dense within a mile of this location. But it's a completely different product in its nature than what this is being proposed. There are other options and they can find them if they want, but it takes someone to hold them to do it.
I mean, I would say I understand your comments. I would also add that, you know, they have met the requirements of the ordinances. Now, I would say that because the waivers they asked for are not really specific to these houses along Templin Road, that's why I voted in favor of the waivers.
The waivers are specific to the entire project. Without the waivers, they'd have to redesign the nature of the project, which means they might have to change these lots. Who knows?
Well, they still have to get through development plan approval. I mean, it's two-step process. I still think they've got significant amount of work to get done because just because you've got this thing, as you know, drawn out as representative, it doesn't mean that this is approval for this project, you know, the development plan at this point. So, any further discussion, comment?
I guess my only other point is that everywhere else I can think of that has this type of layout where it's, you know, kind of, I don't know if you call them row houses, but, you know, houses lined up like this with back access garages, that there is, you know, street parking access in the front. I don't know if there's any other that I can think of where there's something laid out like this that.
The 3 houses on the curve of Willow Road.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, Stonegate's got it as well, but there's a street out front that people can park on
Right.
and get your deliveries from.
right. So,
And I'm with Mr. Jones. I think it's bad design. I don't think it should be there, but it meets the requirements of the, you know, the ordinance. So as frustrating as it is, because it doesn't even match the context of the rest of the neighborhood. It's, you got one house right inside the neighborhood that's gonna be looking at the back of 3 garages when they look out the side of their house. It was how much money can we make off the property we have, not how good can we design it? But it meets the requirements. And
Well,
that's
it doesn't
that's
meet the
frustrating
requirements
part.
without the waivers.
I get that.
Well, that's, once you start granting waivers, then you're saying that it doesn't meet the requirements. It's mutually exclusive terms.
All right, so we have a motion with a second. At this point, I would ask Wayne, please take roll.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake, Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis,
Nay.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2. So the-
I did not, I technically did not ask Mr. Jones yet.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm pretty sure I'll stick with nay.
All right, very good, just for the record.
All right.
Thank you for clarity.
A little clairvoyant there. Motion carries 5-2, so you have the primary plat, but I think, obviously we think we have some work to do on the development plan, so appreciate those.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. At this point in time, we'll go on to new business. Packet number 2021-07 RP, D. Luker, 7600 Windsor, 7602. The Commons petition replat to allow for the vacation of an adjoining property line on lots 150 and 367, resulting in lots being combined into one parcel in the R2 rural residential zoning district. Petitioners present, but before we start, I would ask for a motion to allow dockets number 2021-07 RP, 2021-08 PPA, 2021-09 DP, and 2021-13 PP, and 2021-14 DP to allow for the usage of first-class mail for notice of the petitions.
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay. Now you may proceed.
Good evening, and thank you all for your time. My name is Dan Luker, and I'm here with my wife, Julie Luker. We, as you said, are petitioning to join lots 150 and 367. We bought lot 150 in 2006 and recently bought lot 367, an adjoining lot, and are just petitioning to remove the lot line and make it one lot in Stonegate. And we're happy to answer any questions. We did have Boone County surveyors walk the land and along with Whitestown Utilities, and they saw no issues with the joining of the lots at that point in time.
All right, thank you. At this point, is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this matter? If there's none, Wayne, would you staff report, please?
Certainly, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed. This project looks to eliminate a boundary line and combine two different parcels that are both within Stonegate. This action ultimately will be recorded with the county to provide for that future existence. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point, is there any questions, comments from any of the members of the Plan Commission? If there are none, would somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the docket 2021-07 RP replat to allow for the vacation of the adjoining property lines of lots 150 and 367, resulting in the lots being combined into one parcel in the R2 rural residential zoning district, be approved based on the findings established at the public hearing.
As presented, correct? Right. All right, is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly, Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mr. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
All right, the motion carries 7-0. The replat is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the docket is 2021-08 PPA, C REITs, 6250 Stonegate Lane, petition for primary plat amendment to provide for the establishment of 3 lots in the R1 rural residential zoning district. Petitioner present.
My name is Larry Wright. I'm Carol Wright's son. Yes, we are here. I believe Greg Dempsey, our engineer, is on the internet. He was supposed to be here to make his presentation. If he's not connected for some reason, I can go ahead and answer any questions that you might have other than engineering technical questions.
He just jumped on. It looked like he was up there. There he is.
There he is.
Yeah, sorry, they just let me in.
Please state your name and address.
This is Greg Dempsey. I'm with Innovative Engineering, 3961 Perry Boulevard, Whitestown, Indiana. Here this evening to talk about the primary plat amendment for Stonegate proper. As you know, Larry Wrights is in attendance. He'll be available to help answer any questions. The original primary plat for this was approved by Boone County July 2nd, 1997, and included 19 lots. To date, 16 of those lots have been developed. The area of the plat amendment is showed as lot 16 on the original plat. In your packet, I shaded that area to help make it a little more clear. Because we're taking what was intended to be one very large lot, which is it's nearly 8 acres, and creating 3 lots from that, that's what's necessitated the plat amendment. This area is zoned rural R1. This development is permitted within that zoning district. This will be section 4 of Stonegate proper. It'll have a total of 3 lots and 2 common areas. And this will fit within the 19 lots permitted under the original plat. Section 4 will also be the final section of this development. Lots 1 and 3 will be vacant lots that will be available for sale. Lot 2 contains the existing home that's on that parcel now. That home will remain. Common area A runs along Fishback Creek and the existing pond, and this will allow access for residents to enjoy both of those areas, as well as allow for drainage of those lots to the existing pond. Common area G will be for a common driveway that will serve all 3 lots. There's an existing drive in that area now, and that drive will be widened and improved to better accommodate emergency vehicles, deliveries, and two-way just resident traffic. This will also provide a corridor to get utility service lines to those lots. There's no waivers or variances being requested as part of this development. All utilities are available to the lots already. There's no utility main extensions or anything that will be required. The plat amendment and the development plan have been reviewed and approved by the town, the county surveyor's office, and the town of Whitestown. And with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. At this point in time, is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this matter? Please step forward, state your name, address.
Good evening. Thank you for the time. My name is Kurt Hines. I am president of the Stonegate Proper Homeowners Association. I reside at 6140 Stonegate Run in beautiful Zionsville, Indiana. The Homeowners Association has a little bit of concern, mainly just around some of the ambiguities that we're not clear on. The gentleman online actually addressed one, which was how the driveway was going to be handled. It's a pretty tight driveway now. It certainly would not allow for larger delivery vehicles, fire engines, that sort of thing. But a couple of things that we're not clear on and would like clarification are, one is that our Property Owners Association Stonegate Proper is being referenced in this plan. This land is actually not currently part of Stonegate Proper. That was part of the original design originally submitted by the Wrights family. And, with the addition of, sort of non-rights owned property, it creates a question, frankly, around what happens, should those homes or should those lots be part of our Property Owner Association. Secondly, the only access to these plats are via a road called Stonegate Lane. It is a privately owned road. It is owned by the Property Owners Association. As I understand it, there's an easement that was granted for the Wrights' benefit so that they can access their home. However, that easement only applies to the Wrights family for as long as they own that home. So you have effectively 2 new homeowners who may or may not have access to their homes. depending on how, obviously we treat the situation. Which also leads to the question of, that common area is obviously maintained by the homeowners association that we pay for. Any new residents would get the benefit potentially of that without having to pay the normal homeowners dues. So those are the two main questions we have. We have a little bit of a question around common block area A, particularly the pond. Mr. Dempsey did explain a little bit, kind of answer that. But we are a little curious about how that would be maintained. It is adjacent to the pond, to which other Stonegate proper homes have the benefit of and abut that pond. So a little curious about how that would be maintained, who's responsible for it, because that does have an impact on those homeowners and certainly just the general property values of our homeowner association. Those are the big ones. And then actually the last one would be the cul-de-sac. Currently the driveway, it's a very tight cul-de-sac. Currently the two residents who are kind of on that cul-de-sac explain that large delivery vehicles now can currently not make the turn. It's so tight. And so they usually have to drive up on somebody's lawn to fully make the turn. And it just, I guess a question of how wide the driveway would be, what would that look like? In the diagram that was submitted, it doesn't seem like that driveway is much wider than it currently is, but perhaps that's just because it's really small on my little 8.5, 11 by inch piece of paper. So those are our concerns. Those do impact our homeowners, and I think just some clarity around how those would be handled, is what we're looking for. There's just some additional information around that.
Okay, all right, thank you. Would the petitioner like to comment on those questions?
Yes, I think we'd like to try and address those. Looks like Larry stepped back up there. I know one of the conversations Larry and I have had was concerning the covenants. There are some covenants specific to these 3 lots that will be a part of the plat. And they address the maintenance of the area between the lots and the creek, that common area, as well as around the pond. And Larry, I'll let you weigh in on just the overall Stonegate proper covenants and how this will fall or not fall within that. And then we can move on to some of these other issues.
I tried to make mental notes, so I may forget something, and I'm happy, that he would mention those again. My recollection, not having that declaration for Stonegate proper here in front of me, is that the pond that he's referred to, which I believe is actually Block A, is part of the common areas of Stonegate, and there's specific section in that declaration as far as who's responsible for the maintenance of that, which all of the homeowners in Stonegate proper should have a copy of, or certainly their association. I think that up until it is transferred, all the common areas, which is at the time, I believe, of the last lot being platted, then that would be their responsibility for the maintenance. And prior to that, it would be a shared responsibility. I'm not aware that the owners of Stonegate proper have ever done any maintenance or any work in that on that particular pond, or contributed any funds to the maintenance of it. I know that there is one home that has a property on there. There are two other sections of the other 2 sections of Stonegate, which was Section 2 and Section 3. Both of those properties were given the option to participate in the homeowners association. I'm not aware of their position or whether or not they've joined within the Stonegate proper. But as far as the access, the easement and those rights were not specific to the Wrightses. They were specific to the further property. And they are basically that is these 3 lots. So future owners would also have a right to use and go across that ingress egress easement on that private drive. And that's my recollection.
I think you had a question about the width of the road.
Yeah, that,
Mr. Dempsey had addressed that, but Greg, you want to?
yeah, I can elaborate on that a little bit. Yeah, because like you mentioned, you know, when you get the small copy in the mailing packet, it's sometimes a little difficult to see. That new driveway is going to be 24 feet wide. So it's going to be similar to an actual road section. And that's going to allow, if a delivery truck comes in there and can't make that turn around what he's calling the cul-de-sac, they can pull in, back out, and leave that way without having to try and do that loop. So that's going to make it a whole lot easier for those guys to get in and out of there.
Did he answer the questions?
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for that explanation. I mean, it sounds like the driveway sort of portion is at least being addressed, so we appreciate that. The concern around the pond areas is simply, you are correct in terms of who is responsible for maintaining it, but since the common area A is, you know, borders the pond, I mean, certainly how that is maintained could have some impact on that pond. So that's just a bit of the question around that. Going back to the easement, our attorney, which is the law firm of Eads, Murray and Pugh, has indicated that the easement as granted, this is what they have told us, is for the benefit only of the Wrights family while they own that property. The gentleman asked about sections 2 and 3, both the Schwabs and the McCarthy-Egan family have elected to join Stonegate Proper Homeowners Association. That is a more recent development within the past 6 months. So the concern around just the access and if we are providing, you know, snow removal, et cetera, for that lane, that those residents get the benefit of, you know, but don't have to sort of contribute to that seems inequitable.
All right, thanks. Any additional or any additional comments from either of you? Private rights.
Okay, there's Larry. Go ahead.
No, I don't have anything further to say. You know, as far as the roads in Stonegate proper, you know, they were constructed to the Boone County Highway specifications. If the Homeowners Association wanted to dedicate those to Boone County, they would be able to do so. When the neighborhood was initially constructed in 1978, they thought there might be a gated community. In the early stages of the neighborhood, it was voted by the neighbors that they didn't want to have a 14-lot gated community. It would just create too many headaches with, you know, trying to allow people to come in and this and that and the other thing. Early on, I was also a resident in the neighborhood. And as far as the you know, those discussions, I do remember those because I was a part of those.
All right, thank you. All right, at this point, I'll close the comment. Wayne, would you have a staff report, please?
Certainly, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed. It's certainly new information regarding the potential complexity of accessing the easement. Certainly don't want to put Mr. Clutter on the spot, but certainly our subdivision control ordinance speaks to each development must have access to a public street. Certainly The ordinance also supports the creation of these lots on a drive, and that's something that's being done. But the complexity of the permissions to utilize the easement, which functions as a street, when they have a subdivision control ordinance that requires access ultimately to some sort of street, seems to be something that needs additional clarity here. Again, otherwise, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point, is there any members of the plan commission who'd like to comment on this?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I would have the same delivery issue here, that you're gonna ask a Lowe's appliance delivery truck to drive 200 feet down this lane and then back 200 feet out because there's nowhere for them to turn around. And so that to me is one problem. If this development is going to throw more common area onto Stonegate Proper's rolls and not require the residents that abut that common area to pay in to help maintain that, I feel like that is a huge problem, and that's happened in the past. It shouldn't have happened. It's been tried more than once by the Wrightses in development in Stonegate proper and Stonegate. And I think perpetuating that is a problem. So I think that needs to be addressed, and whether that can be addressed along with easement rights, where easement rights maybe could be granted if there's language there that requires that those homes be a part of Stonegate Proper Homeowners Association and thus pay into the pot for the access for their snow removal and for funds to help maintain that common area. I think that is something I'd be more amenable to, but I'm not a fan of this type of development being added on to the end of a neighborhood with requirements that kind of force this down a neighborhood's throat. I don't feel like that's the right way to do it.
Right. Would either of you like to comment? Does anybody else have any comments on this?
I just want to make sure I'm looking at this correctly. So currently, there's a Stonegate, there's an actual road in Stonegate. Looking at exhibit.
This is the actual road.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to.
That was the drive that had these two houses in a little cul-de-sac.
Okay.
And then there was a private drive going back to that.
Got it.
And now they're looking to
Demo that.
well, leave it, or somebody can buy it and demo it, and put the two houses on the sides of it. They no longer get owned by the, there are maybe 3 individual properties.
I guess to the question of the deliveries, if the road was a sufficient width and they've actually functioning driveways, delivery vehicles can then pull into the driveway of wherever they're delivering, and then they should be able to make a 3-point turn getting out. My question is, I don't really see any provisions, or are the provisions in here for the design and construction of that drive? From what I'm looking at on this exhibit or drawing from Innovative, it appears that they really ought to go farther up the drive and kind of straighten that thing out and make a proper road/drive out of it. I would be interested in making sure that Stonegate is acceptable to, or amenable, agreeable, however you want to say it, to the addition of all this common area. They're getting given a lake and then all that adjoining land, which appears to be that common area A looks as if it's not really accessible unless you go through somebody else's private property. Am I looking at that correctly?
Yes. One thing I think, and I'll take fault for that, for not elaborating far enough on the common area. If you look at the 3rd page of the plat, there's language in there regarding ownership and maintenance of that common area. And that falls squarely on the owners of these 3 new lots. it's not spread out over all of Stonegate proper.
It's kind of a subdivision within a subdivision. Is that what I'm
Yeah,
hearing?
sort of, yes. But part of the reasoning for that was so that it didn't push that burden on to the other homeowners.
So they're gonna be jointly responsible for the land, but not have an association to work out who's gonna deal with it? I guess what if they don't get along with each other and there's an issue?
Basically, nobody's gonna deal with it,
Yeah.
and nobody can access it to deal with it anyway.
I mean, I'm looking at the adjoining development to the east, let's call it Eaglewood for lack of a better. And there's a series of lots there that extend all the way back to what I'm assuming is a creek.
Yes.
Yes.
So why don't lots 1, 2, and 3 have just full ownership all the way back to the same creek line and keep Stonegate out of the maintenance business? At least for this area.
I think that Greg had addressed that on the third page of the plat, that each of those owners essentially is responsible, even though it's called common area, they're responsible for the maintenance of it. It is a creek, it is a floodplain, it's a natural area, it's not manicured or landscaped in any way. It's I guess you could say a kind of wild area, and the properties on the other side of the creek there, they also they're responsible for their, obviously up to the middle of the creek or wherever the property line is, and they can take care of that however they want. However, that is not any kind of an association that I'm aware of, which you reference Eaglewood.
So Fishback Creek is a recognized waterway. So I'm assuming the county, trying to think what the actual title is, where they,
Yeah, they have it as a legal drain.
well, the county has the ability to go back into on that easement, do any kind of maintenance they need to on Fishback Creek, correct?
Correct.
So the creek proper is taken care of. It's just adjoining land to it that, while it's very natural and nice, it's, if for some reason it does need some sort of maintenance,
Now that area is also it's in a floodway. So they're going to be very limited on anything they can actually do in there. Even, I mean, if they had to take a tree down or something, they could do that, but any kind of land disturbing activity they can't do without getting special permitting and stuff first. So that land is really, it's kind of a no man's land as far as trying to do anything back there other than just kind of leaving it in its natural state.
There can't be any fences or other structures placed in that area that would really ever need any kind of maintenance.
I just feel like these, I guess, issues with the road, who's paying for maintaining the road, and who's going to have responsibility for these areas needs to be more clearly defined before this can move forward, in my opinion. But
yeah, if you're going to develop 3 lots, then you need to develop the road to access them.
I think the other challenge is if by doing this, you lose your easement, you then don't have access to these, so therefore we can't grant access to something that doesn't have.
Yeah, there's difference of opinion on the easement, if they've got it or not, the access, so. I think that, I'm concerned about that, when I look at this.
I'd be more comfortable if the Stone Creek Homeowners Association seemed to be more in line with proposed development as to who's responsible for what, where, how, and
it was made part of their these properties were made part of the homeowners association and that they were okay with what they were taking on.
I mean,
I think the offer to maintain that common area A is not, I mean, there's not much to maintain that property, to be honest. So,
But it's still,
it's their responsibility, but
there's no clear lines of who's responsible.
Yeah, I think it does stay on that third page that
You have to-
owners, I'm sorry, on that third page, I think that it does say that each owner on their property line extended to the center line of the creek is responsible for the area directly behind their property. And obviously that would be identified on the plat or we could add an exhibit if necessary, which was done in other parts of other neighborhoods that I'm familiar with.
Well, then why make the common area? Why not just make it part of their lot? I guess
Yeah.
If it's gonna be their lot line extended anyway.
I think that the main reason was so that there would not have to be any exceptions made, or we wouldn't have to ask for any kind of waivers on for the lots for the development. I think there was could have been some issues with the 3-to-1 ratios and those kinds of things. I mean, this is a relatively small area. It's a natural area. And there's really, there are two properties. There may be some access for Stonegate proper owners to possibly walk around there, but it would be a very small area that is where these current lots that exist, which would be lot 14 and section 3, lot 1, there's maybe like 2 or 3 feet before, from the edge of the property to the actual pond itself. Probably not enough to get the mowers and those kinds of things through.
We are showing a 10-foot maintenance easement around the top of that pond. So there will be access all the way around. As far as the drive goes, there's actually language in the plat as well that speaks to who needs to pay for the construction and maintenance of that private drive, and that again falls on these 3 lots specifically.
I mean, is this the first time you've heard about the access issue?
That is correct.
And how would we go about resolving that or figuring out what that is?
Certainly some sort of finality to the HOA who can, well, it's a determination of who controls the easement, and certainly you have a differing opinions here tonight. But certainly we'd like to think that all parties could come to a resolution and certainly provide the appropriate access.
Certainly like to see a copy of the easement.
If I may, so I don't know the process, but we'd be happy to have direct Eads, Murray and Pugh to send whatever to Mr. Clutter's office, if that would be helpful.
That'd be acceptable. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And to the point of considering Stonegate proper, I mean, I would have to ask our residents, but certainly, I could promise to get an opinion on that by the next meeting, if that would be helpful as to whether or not, the homeowners would be amenable to adding at least a couple lots. I know the Wrights family had a desire to not be part of the association. And I think we've respected that out of particularly Mr. and Mrs. Wright's, contribution just to the area. So I would be hopeful, but I would need to check with them.
Have these lots been pre-sold then? No. All right.
So I guess my question is, if we continued this matter till a later meeting, is working on these issues to better define this something that you guys want to work on, or do you want us to vote on it as is?
certainly don't want to do anything that would make this board feel uncomfortable. I think we're happy to ask for an additional time so that we can have legal counsel review the documents. I'm confident that the intent of this neighborhood was to have 19 lots in it, and there's 16 lots, and that was not some kind of an oversight or a mistake, and that access is going to be okay. But we're happy to give everybody additional time to review that, and I guess we would ask for the additional time to be continued to the next meeting, if the board would accept that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this point in time, we have a request for continuance from the petitioner to the May 17th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed by nay? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Well, guess we'll see you next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item on the docket is 2021-09 DP 643 LLC, 6885 Stonegate Drive, petition for development plan approval to allow for the construction of a 5,790 foot plus or minus square foot office building in the PB Rural Professional Business Office District. Is the petitioner present?
Yes, sir. My name is Adam Dehart. I'm a project manager at Keeler Webb Associates. Our offices are located at 486 Gradle Drive. I believe this evening on the internet is Mr. Joe Lisi with the Progress Studio, who's the architect on this project. Keeler Webb Associates is providing surveying and engineering services on the building and civil engineering of the project. I call your attention to the packet that I believe all of you have. I'm going to briefly go through the items here in the packet to orient you with what we're requesting here this evening. We're requesting approval of a professional office building in PB district. 643 LLC is the ownership group. Actual owner of this professional office building will be Todd and Jody McClure. They operate Credence Financial Group, which is a subsidiary, and their main product is Northwestern Mutual Financial Services. They will be owner operator, and they will operate out of the south half of the structure. The north half of the structure will probably be leased out to other professional office type tenant. In your packet, we requested from Mr. DeLong waiver on parking spaces of 10%. The ownership of this particular piece of property don't have that many people in their office space. So we're just asking for the 10% reduction simply because if we have 29 parking spaces for under 5,800 square feet, we feel like that's overparked. That also creates us some issues. As you can see on our site plan, we've pretty much filled the site up with building and parking. We're kind of running out of room there, so we're trying to get the building to take care of the client's needs and then also provide the parking and access for the customers that would operate out of it. Their particular business is operating out of the area. The McClures are residents of Zionsville, so they're wanting to relocate their business to the community. In your packet, we also have the aerial photo. As you enter into the Stonegate community, this is the vacant piece of property on the right or the northeast corner of Oak Street and Stonegate Drive. Our immediate neighbor to the north is a professional office dentist building. Our neighbor to the west is the IU medical facility. As you're looking at our site plan, as I said, we have an L-shaped building that accommodates both our client and a future office tenant to the north side with the parking to the east. There is a section of the sidewalk along Stonegate Drive that wasn't installed previously that we intend to install as a part of this project. We are planning to have our curb cut off of the common area S to the north, which is an ingress egress easement to our property and the 2 or 3 other properties that are east of here. The next page back is 2 sheets of the building elevations. As you can see, we plan to have red masonry brick on all 4 sides. We will have entry doors primarily to the east, but we will have emergency exit doors to the west. Those entry doors and entry systems will appear like a door that anybody can walk up to and access to. We are providing some patios along the west side of the facility that could be used by the tenants of these particular facilities as break room or outdoor lounge area, however they choose to use them. There is no trash dumpster enclosure because of this being a professional office. So much of our work these days anymore in professional office is all electronic. There's not that much of a need for trash. So we would expect literally just to have a trash can each for each facility. And we're going to enclose that in a small mechanical area in the corner of the rear of the facility that will be screened. So there's no need for a trash dumpster just because we don't have the volume of trash to warrant one. Next page back would be our landscape design. Our design complies with the ordinance. We're going to supplement in with the existing tree landscape that's along West Stonegate Drive and the common area that is our neighbor to the south that is owned and maintained by Stonegate. Included in our packet and as a part of our approval process, we've made submittals to Omni Management, which is the management firm that does the review process with Stonegate, and we've been granted their review and approval of our entire site development package and building elevations. Also included in the packet are some samples of our signage that we plan to do over the doors on the east side of the facility and the ground mounted sign. And then lastly, to be brief, and I'll be available for any questions that you might have, we would ask that you respond positively to the findings that are provided for you in the packet. And with that, I'd be available for any questions any of you might have.
All right, thank you very much.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question about my position on this? I'm a resident of Stonegate. Does that preclude me from voting on this?
Bob?
Because if so, I'll go sit over there for this session that
Is this, well, not just being a resident of Stonegate in and of itself, I
Okay.
don't believe
I just wanted to
does.
make sure that I wasn't conflicted.
As long as you're not like on the homeowners association board that would oversee anything or have any architectural approvals or anything like that.
Nope, signed
Okay.
off on that a year ago.
Just being a resident of the neighborhood itself does not.
I am, okay. Thank you, sorry.
No problem. All right, at this point in time, I'd like to ask if there's any members of the public, must be online, who would like to make a comment on this matter. There are none. All right, so Wayne, may we have the staff report, please?
Certainly, staff supports the petition as it's been filed. It's certainly nice to see the Stonegate commercial area coming to a conclusion. There's just a small handful of lots left. This is a great petition to facilitate the opportunity for Zionsville residents and others in the area to construct this facility. Certainly, staff mentions that because we recognize the parking reduction while it's being requested. The staff is fully supportive of that logic, and certainly will continue that thought process as live work type opportunities are created and facilitated within the town. Again, staff is supportive of the petition as it's been filed, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, I'll open up to members of the Plan Commission for any comments, questions.
So you have a neighborhood with homes that range from 600,000 to over $1 million. And you face the back of the building is the first thing that you see when you drive in the neighborhood. I'm a little concerned about that as a resident and as a Plan Commission member.
Understandable. We were in a situation where we're trying to be cognizant of particularly the school in addition to the residents. as far as our orientation on the site with the location of our curb cut. To have the curb cut on the north side as opposed to the west on Stonegate Drive, it limits your ability to actually develop this site. This site's 6/10 of an acre. It's very difficult to get any kind of size of any structure at all on this particular piece of property. Your choices are to have parking to the north, parking to the south or east or the west. We chose to have the parking to the east. We chose to have all four sides of the building fully developed in that the doors on the west side are a full entry system type door. The windows match all the way around the facility. The architectural style matches all the way around the facility. We really believe that other than your ability to drive up to the east side and have an overhang at the man door that people actually use in a vestibule, the west side appears like a front of a building, much like the east side does.
Maybe you and I are looking at different drawings. Because that drawing does not appear anything like that drawing. Those are two completely different levels of facade development. The trash cans you refer to will be in a storage enclosure facing the main entrance, along with, I'm guessing, mechanical units. So you're literally going to pull into the neighborhood and look to your right and see the back of a professional office building is the first thing you see coming into the neighborhood. I drive it 4 times a day at a minimum.
I understand, and you are correct. There is not a gable over those entry doors, but it's the same entry door system that we have on the east facade.
I understand you're trying to fit what you need to fit on the site, but that's a huge disservice to the entrance to a really nice neighborhood.
Yeah, I got to support what Chris is saying. I know even the, was it IU Health or St. Which one's?
IU Health.
IU Health. There you're looking at the side of the building and it appears they even stuck a little bit of a gable on that, what I would call the west side of that building. I haven't driven past it as much as you have, but
It's, yeah, the south side is the front, which kind of faces, I don't know, 334 White
Yeah.
Parkway, whatever it's called these days. Yeah. And the design the design aesthetic generally matches that building and the dentist / orthodontics building, which is just north of this parcel. But none of them have the back of their building facing the main street. They've got a side, with the front being visible when you come in the entry drive. You see the fronts of their buildings, and then you drive past the sides of the building, so you're not directly looking at the back of the buildings. And I may be the only one on this committee that's concerned about that, but
No, when I actually saw their elevations, I was thinking that was the west elevation.
yeah, I know. Just as you mentioned it, I think all of us pulled our drawings out one more time.
Yeah.
The other issue is they don't have any signage back there on that back side either.
yeah, I mean, yeah, not in this view anyway.
Not on the building. There is a ground mounted sign off the northwest corner of the structure that would identify the tenants in the facility.
So the issue is you didn't want to put the curb cut on West Stonegate Drive, so kind of flip it for the parking lot in the building and reverse that. Would that, I mean, Wayne, could they have put a curb cut on the West Stonegate Drive?
Certainly, it would be up to the county highway department. It may have been discouraged for a variety of reasons.
I think you would also have to have the parking lot, which would be the first thing people would see when they drive in. And nice not having to.
And if you go up to the road north of it, you couldn't bid the access there because it's gonna be within how many feet of an intersection, I'm guessing, so.
And would additional landscaping on the west side of the building alleviate some of your concerns?
I mean, some of it, yeah, there may be some additional architectural elements on that side of the building. I mean, the majority of the people that enter that neighborhood enter from the west.
Yeah.
Because there's an east entrance to the subdivision. So if you're coming from the east, you enter the subdivision on the east entrance. So everybody's coming from the west. So as you turn in, everybody making that turn is looking at the back of that building. Because the first thing they see in a multi-million-dollar home neighborhood.
Well, even the medical facility across the street, when you drive in, you're first looking south, so you're seeing the front of the building. So.
Yeah, you're seeing the front of the building, and there's parking lots there, but I mean, they've got trees in them and stuff and islands, and it's not like looking at the back of the building.
Even if they took, so the owner is going to reside in the south portion of this. So even if they took their rear, a little bit nicer door and added something similar to what's on the front, it'd also be a place they could, once again, have another frontage for signage like they have on the other side. I think that would give the building a little something, and then by the time you got around the corner and got to the north end of it, it just kind of disappears.
Yeah, and then you got the patios that they'll use to eat on, so you're gonna have patio furniture
Yeah,
sitting out there that's.
at least it would have one kind of facade facing out to Stonegate Drive.
At least one.
Yeah.
So are you guys requesting them to take it back and do a little bit more work, see if they can make those changes?
I mean, I would not support it in this form, but that's me personally. And
I'd support what Chris is saying. I think there's an opportunity they could clean up a portion of that. Basically, what is the west facade, improve the look of the building. I think they'd pick themselves up a signage spot. Is there limits to number of locations they can have signage, Wayne, on a building?
In the rural area, I'm not recalling offhand. I mean, the rural area is much more supportive of signage based upon percentages.
yeah, they wouldn't hit it. There's like virtually nothing they could do to hit it on this building. And Stonegate does have some requirements for signage, but none that would prohibit that, or that, I mean, they voted for the architecture, which I have to take up with some people, but yeah, it shouldn't prohibit it.
I think as the second tenant, I mean, at least Northwest Mutual, you're gonna see right on the street when you're coming from the east. I just trying to figure out how to get in there. The second tenant, you're farther away from the road. I mean, I just look at this as, there was the west elevation was more, beefed up, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. And the problem with the size of the lot and the layout of it, this is probably the most efficient way to do anything. If you try to position the building on the south end of the lot, then you don't end up with that parking for the size of building you could put. If you try to put the building up in the north and put parking to the south, then you end up with a lot of drive, and that doesn't work.
But even if you put it on the south end of the lot, you just got the back of the building facing 334 anyway. So the entrance would face north then.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
The entry door system on the east side of the facility is designed so that there is an overhang for people to walk up to the door like you would expect under any normal entry door. We can make a similar look of that entry door that's on the east side. We can make that similar look on the west side over our tenant's door. So there would be a gable there and the columns would be there, but it'd all be flush. So from the street view, you could still see those columns because we could apply them flush with the facade. So it would look like a door gable on the east side, and that would get you one entrance on that side. I hate to say that I'd put two on the west side simply because I don't know how that empty tenant space is going to be taken care of. But I know the owner who's going to operate out of the south end, they intend to use that outdoor patio area as a, outdoor break room and a patio and an amenity that they intend to use. But we could apply that gable and the columns flush to the facade and still accomplish that look that you're looking for there. It just wouldn't be the functional with the overhang on the front end. Would that be something that would be palatable
I
to the
think
plan
that would
commission?
work. It'd be nice to even, you could get a small, even if it's only like 6 foot wide, a small little gable over the other door. No protrusion from the face of the building, but just something over that, because all you got's a roof all the way across there. It's just roof. Just something to break that up. So you do the gable with even just one set of columns or something next to the bigger door, and then just a smaller gable or something over the second suite door.
One thing that you do miss in this elevation, because it is flat, there is a step back in the building also, so that's going to help that too. So it's not going to be a flat or a rear facade because of the stepping in the actual foundation. We'd be willing to make that similar look with your approval as a condition over the southern door on the west facade.
Chris?
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that.
And if you would like and you wanted to stipulate that to staff review and approval, we'd be more than happy to work with them. I think we're on the same page as far as what you're trying to accomplish there.
Are you comfortable with that?
Certainly. Is there anything Mr. Lisi would like to add to the dialogue here as the architect of record on the project?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. Joseph Lisi, Progress Studio. Our address is 1103 East 10th Street in Indianapolis. I value everyone's comments that I've heard so far tonight, and definitely we want to enhance the neighborhood. And I think that we presented a solid effort here, and I think that we can for sure introduce council's comments to this, or the commission's comments to this as well. I think adding on the southwest door, if we can basically enhance that entry with something that's flat, that does have maybe 2 columns instead of 4. We'll have to play with the scale a little bit, since that facade's a little bit of a downplay compared to the east side. I definitely think we can achieve something there. And then the northwest door, we can do some kind of surround with trim, with some entry pediment that can be a little bit downplayed, but still enhance that elevation. We are limited to 4 signs for the building, based on the frontage being in the district that it's in. So the signage locations that we are proposing right now are probably the most ideal, but certainly if anybody has additional comments on signage, we'll take those as well. Like Adam said, the patio, especially for the owner, is going to be enhanced with landscaping and will be used in a manner that supports their operations as well for their staff. So I appreciate everyone's time tonight, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
All right, thank you.
I mean, the only point staff would offer is certainly how the tenants manage their access control. Certainly, while the plan commission is focused on adding these details, it could become an operational issue for the tenant as to which door a customer is trying to enter. And certainly if these rear doors are more for staff, additional functionality such as a bike rack or something that's more for the staff is placed back here just to give visual cues that this is for more for the convenience of the tenants and not for the occupants or not for the customers. Again, just food to think about as the group moves through this.
All right. So any more questions, comments? If not, would somebody like to take a stab at the motion?
I would like to make one more comment.
Oh, sure.
I don't think it'd be particularly difficult for the, entry, the alcove over the southwest to better mimic the one on the front. The 4 columns, you can keep it down in line with the existing band board and soffit. Seems like the front plan shows a little bit of a step out, but I think it needs to have a little bit of scale. 2 columns and a little bit of roof over it, flat to the face, is going to look exactly what it sounds like. And like I said, to Chris's point, this thing is sitting up at the front and you're basically showing the rear of the building. So a little bit of something there wouldn't be done in a cost-effective manner. And then the entries on the front facing the parking lot on the east side can be a little more grand like they're shown. You don't have to add to the water table. You don't have to raise the height like it's on the front. But I think there is a happy medium to give something that has a little bit of punch. And I think if we show up with 2 columns and a little triangle over the top, it ain't gonna do it. Chris, any other thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I mean, I think Joseph mentioned scale, so it needs to be scale appropriate. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is not have it look exactly like the other 2 buildings that are adjacent. I would say the IU building has 2 columns with a gable, and I think what we're showing here, at least on the east elevation, is a little bit more enhanced than that. So we would definitely want to match the aesthetic and not have it be an afterthought. So.
Well, why don't we just let them come back with what they think we want and go from there? We can talk it to death, but they have to come back anyway.
Well, we can go one of 2 ways. We could, trust Wayne, or we could have him come back next month, I guess, is the kind of the 2 things that have been posed.
If we approve it with the recommendations of the plan commission to make those architectural changes, as one of the, have that in one of the additions, wouldn't that cover it? And then trust Wayne and these guys, who seem like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm personally comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Wayne will, I think, knows the direction we'd like to go on this, so if he feels like there's issues, he would make sure we're aware of it.
Correct, and certainly we can check. I mean, as part of the motion, I mean, you could assign, I'll say a subcommittee, but certainly, the staff would check with, certainly share the drawings with Plan Commission leadership and 2 other individuals or 1 other individual, just so we don't get into a open door issue. That's something else if that answers any concern you might have.
I mean, if we went that route, would there be any volunteers for a subcommittee on this? Chris?
I would if we need that.
I mean, I'll take a look at it. Anybody else?
I'll take a look at it.
Okay, so we would have Chris, Josh, and myself. All right. Are we ready for a motion on this one?
Go ahead. I don't know how this is gonna work with that subcommittee. thing, but
I can help you. when you
We'll
get
give it
there.
a shot here. I move the docket number 2021-09-DP to allow for development plan approval for the construction of a 5,790 plus or minus square foot office building in the PB Rural Professional Business Office District. Be approved utilizing the design flexibility section of the ordinance regarding parking spaces based on the finding of facts of the staff report and staff recommendations, with the caveat, with the condition.
Including the utilization of a subcommittee to review final architectural details administered by staff, with that committee being Plan Commission leadership and Chris Lake.
Okay. I don't know that I can say that as good as Wayne just said it. Can we just count what he said?
It's on your record.
Great, it's on the record. What
Be
Wayne
adopted
said.
as part of the motion.
Second.
All right, there's a second. Is there any further discussion? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly, Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mr. Lake,
Aye.
Mr. Fedor,
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
That's everybody this time. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you
on
for
this
your
matter.
time, and I'm sure that we can come up with a design that everybody's gonna be happy with.
All right,
It'll
thank
be a
you very
nice
much.
facility.
Thank you.
All right, the last two items on the docket are 2021-13 PP. 3900 Southwest 421, Club and Holiday Farms, Section 6, petition for primary plat approval with waivers provided for 51 lots in the PUD Planned Unit Development Zoning District. And docket number 2021-14 DP, same address, same petitioner, petition for development plan approval to provide for the development of a 47.5 plus or minus acre site into 51 lots in the PUD Planned Unit Development Zoning District. Is the petitioner present? I'm assuming they're online.
Can you hear me now?
We can see you too.
All right, excellent. Well, good evening, members of the Plan Commission. My name is Phil Sundling, and I'm with the Hankey Development Group. As always, we really appreciate your time and consideration this evening. I know it's been a long night, so I'll try to stay brief. Just a quick update on the development as a whole. We have, in just over 2 years, we've sold over 300 lots among all of the sections at Holiday Farm. So sales, of course, have been incredibly strong, far exceeded our expectations even. On the construction side of things, sections 1 and 2 are completed with many of the homes underway. We've got a number of families that have actually moved into their homes now, so that's kind of exciting. We're planning to pave section 3 and 4 here in the next couple of months as well. So both of those phases will be wrapping up, and we'll begin the construction of homes yet this year. Our goal is to start construction of section 5 here very soon as well. The championship golf course is continuing its growing period. Golf maintenance guys have really ramped up their efforts over the past month or so now that weather's broken, and they are gearing up for a grand opening sometime around the middle of June. So very exciting times, certainly very busy times at Holiday Farms, no doubt. That brings us to section 6, which is before you for consideration this evening. We are proposing 50 single-family detached lots of varying size, along with a future clubhouse lot, all of which is on under 48 acres. This portion of development is located on the northwest corner of our property along holes 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So really kind of the back 5 holes there. This proposal includes the ground that our future clubhouse will be constructed on, but those details will be forthcoming in a future filing. Lots in this section range anywhere from just over a 1/3 acre to well over 2 acres, all of which are very similar in terms of the rolling hills, tree coverage, natural streams, much of very similar to what you've seen in Holiday Farms on previous sections. On this particular phase of the development, we have essentially no neighbors except for our own residents, so nothing really to consider as far as buffering from existing properties. One thing I'd like to point out as far as the filing goes, we had originally proposed a waiver from the construction standards with respect to the minimum block length, simply due to some physical constraints we had on the site. However, after discussing with Josh Frost, the fire department and other staff, we have agreed to withdraw that particular waiver, which should be reflected in your packets this evening. In talking further with Kripe, our designer, along with Josh and staff, I think we found a workable solution that'll work for all groups with the introduction of a mid-block cul-de-sac that'll achieve what Josh is looking for in particular in terms of safety. Again, with the high demand we're seeing here at Holiday, we're excited to get this section approved and get going on its development. This section alone on only 48 acres is expected to generate over $70 million of assessed value. So just incredible, very exciting, obviously. Happy to answer any questions or address any comments you all may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Maybe there's somebody online, but is there anybody in the member from the public who'd like to comment on this matter? I'll take that as a no. All right, Wayne, can we have the staff report, please?
Certainly, staff is supportive of both petitions that have been filed, 2021-14 DP and 2021-13 PP. Staff certainly recognizes the amendment this evening that's been mentioned related to the mid-block cut to mitigate the need for that specific waiver. Otherwise, staff is supportive of the petitions as they've both been filed with the waivers that remain on the filing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Wayne. At this point in time, I'll open it up to any questions, comments from the members of the Plan Commission. No questions are good in this case, so if there are no questions or comments, would somebody like to make a motion on this matter?
I move that docket 2021-13-PP petition for primary plat approval to provide for 51 lots in the PUD plan unit development be approved based on findings of facts as presented.
Second.
All right, is there any further comments, discussions? Being none, Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly, Mr. Franz.
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye. All right, that motion carries 7-0. The primary plat's approved. On to docket number 2021-14 DP. Would somebody like to make a motion on that matter?
I move that docket 2021-14 DP development plan petition to provide for the development of a 47.5 plus or minus acre site into 51 lots with the assurance of installing the second cul-de-sac on Summerford Ridge in the planned unit development zoning district be approved with the conditions noted in the staff report and based on the findings of fact.
Second.
Does that need to state inclusive of the requested waivers as presented?
You want to include the waivers?
Yes, sorry.
You accept that? Okay, all right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any comment, questions? Wayne, would you please take roll?
Certainly, Mr. Franz.
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mr. Lake.
Aye.
Mr. Fedor.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye. That motion carries also 7-0. Development plans approved. The question is, will you sell them all in a day or less?
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Wayne, other matters, we had the Appaloosa Crossing.
Certainly, happy to speak to that first. You have one other item to cover with you, but right in your packet is an amendment to a development plan that's been approved there is a strong list of different items that have been modified based upon your original approval. Ultimately, it revolves around a change in the building and the splitting of a bay, and ultimately moving of the drive-through, mid-building drive-through component. Again, staff is bringing this to you as are required to by the zoning ordinance to report out a modification that we have approved.
All right. Does anybody have any comments, questions on this one? Wayne, is there anything else you'd like to bring up?
Yes, this morning, the town council adopted resolution 2021-07. This is a matter where the town council on the April 12th, as well as this morning, discussed requiring the plan commission to prepare a rezoning petition. And this specific petition would be associated with ground locally known as the Cato ground. It is acreage on the south side of 200 South, just to the south of the Indianapolis Executive Airport north-south runway. This is acreage that was rezoned a number of years ago by the Boone County Area Plan Commission, assigning the R3 residential classification. The town council has specifically articulated that they're requiring the plan commission to docket a petition seeking a rezoning to agriculture for this particular piece of ground. Your own rules of procedure require a rezoning petition to be filed at least 31 days prior to your hearing date. Given that this action happened today, the first eligible meeting that this matter could be discussed at and meet your rules of procedure is your June Plan Commission meeting. I would also note that per your own zoning ordinance, there are specific rules that are in place related to cluster subdivisions in an agricultural area. So certainly we will be looking to, when we review and put together the rezoning petition, we will be referencing other rules that are in place in the zoning ordinance specific to cluster subdivisions in the ag district that I believe the plan commission, or at least the town council, was looking to mitigate, as the emphasis from the conversations at both on the 12th and the 19th focused on reducing the probability that residences could be constructed on this acreage, given its proximity to the airport and or the extension of the runway.
All right, does anybody have any questions, comments on that? If there are none, is there any other matters? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.